Good evening and welcome to the Smyrna Town Council workshop to set our agenda for our council meeting for March. Before we move into our items for discussion, I'm going to ask Jerry, would you do our prayer tonight? Sorry, I kind of caught you off guard there. Right. And Mike Moss, will you do our pledge? Great. If you'll stand with us, please.
Father in heaven, we're so thankful for this day, Lord. We're so thankful for the blessings that you've given us, Father. Lord, we're so thankful we live in a country and a town, and we have the freedoms that we have, Lord. Father, we just pray now to just be with us tonight as we go through this meeting, Lord, and just give us the wisdom and help us to make the right decisions, Lord, and ask the right questions, Father. Lord, we're thankful for our fire department, our police, those that protect us. Father, we just pray that you be with them and bless them, Lord. Lord, go with us now, and I just pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jerry. Mike? Okay, we'll move into our items for discussion. Our first item is consideration of an ordinance to amend the Smyrna Municipal Zoning Ordinance relative to amending Article 5, Section 5.055.E regarding setbacks in the A1 district. This is a second reading. Kevin?
Mr. Mayor and Council, this would be an amendment, a text amendment to the zoning ordinance that would just change the setbacks from 100 feet to 50 feet for front and from 50 to 25 for side and rear in the A1 district, which is the property that is owned by the Airport Authority. This was requested by the Airport Authority Board, and so the Planning Commission did recommend it to you. There have been no changes since you looked at it on first reading.
Questions for Kevin on this? Okay, there are no changes since the first reading. We will put it on our agenda. Item 2 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of properties located on tax map 33, parcel 71.00 and 71.01, containing approximately 12.61 acres. It's requested by Alcorn Properties to go from R1 to PUD. The properties are located on Rocky Fork Road. This is a second reading. Kevin?
Yeah, again, no changes since first reading. This would be a rezoning request from R1 to a PUD. The PUD would have 2 commercial lots developed that would be developed utilizing the C4 guidelines, and then 87 units of townhouses. Did include all the pattern book and everything that came with that application in your packet as well, and the Planning Commission did recommend it to you.
Questions for Kevin on this or any comments since first reading? Seeing none, we'll put that on the agenda and move on to item 3, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning request to amend the approved PRD of properties located on tax map 54, parcels 49.00, 52.00, and 52.01, containing approximately 122 acres. It's requested by Cedar Hills Holdings, LP. The properties are located south of Morton Lane, and it is a second reading. Kevin?
Yeah, again, no changes since first reading. This would just amend the existing PUD. It would not change the density or number of units or anything like that. It would just change some lot width requirements and side setback requirements on some of those lots. There were 3 conditions I will highlight just for the public and everyone. One, the HVAC units are required to be to the rear of the homes. And we'd ask them to show the proposed utility extensions as well as to line the new roadway up with Briley Road.
Questions for Kevin? Okay, we'll move on to item 4, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 27P, Group C, parcel 8.00, containing approximately 0.4 acre. It's requested by Ed Davenport to go from R2 to C4. The property is located at 407 Hazelwood Drive, and it is a second reading. Kevin?
This is a rezoning request of 407 Hazelwood Drive. It is currently zoned R2. There is C2 zoning in the area as well as C4 zoning in that area. There is an existing house on this tract that will remain as part of the overall development of the property. Planning Commission did recommend it to you.
Questions or comments? Move on to item 5, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 19, parcels 33.00, containing approximately 4.11 acres. It's requested by Gary Duncan to go from I-2 to PUD. The property is located at 100 G Street, and this also is a second reading.
Mayor and Council, again, no changes since first reading. This PUD is for to keep the I-2 uses that are already allowed, but to have the added use of retail automobile sales. They would all be inside the existing building. The Planning Commission did review this and did recommend it to you. And again, no changes since first reading.
Questions for Kevin? Item 6 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28M, Group C, parcel 4.00, containing approximately half an acre. It's requested by Abhi Patra to go from R2 to R4. The property is located at 507 Enon Springs Road West, and it is a second reading.
This is a request from R2 to R4. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R1 and R2. There's a parcel zoned R4 about 125 feet to the east. This parcel also has frontage along Frank Street. There is an existing house on this tract that will remain. Planning Commission did review this and did recommend it to you.
Questions for Kevin on this?
Okay, this is the one they're wanting to put another structure on it.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. And we're just looking at it from the standpoint of changing the zoning.
The zoning at this point, right.
Okay.
There was some discussion about how they were going to access this and whether the fire department was going to be able to get in there, and has any of that been addressed at all?
At this time, no, we still don't have a plat yet. I know there was a concern about one of the existing two homes that Habitat built, and that there was a fence. There wasn't a fence across it. They had put a railroad tie across it, so you couldn't access it. I think codes, I know they talked to them about removing that, so that for the existing driveway. I know that came up the other night.
But on this one, do they plan on leaving that house there, or are they going to tear it down and put two more?
They plan on leaving. They will be leaving that house, the existing house, and then they would be building. What they're proposing to do would be building a second structure on the south side of the lot, which would access Frank Street.
So you wouldn't access the house in the back from Enon Springs. It would strictly be Frank Street.
As far as the day-to-day access would be Frank Street. I mean, there would be, the idea was, and what we've talked with the developer about, is that they would have the same setup that we did with Habitat, that there would be an access easement across the driveway of the existing home to get back to this new house, but it would only be using it for the emergency purposes, so the fire department could have adequate fire flow. The day-to-day access would be utilizing Frank Street is what they proposed.
And you're going to address the specifics at planning is when you get the site
Correct.
plan.
Correct.
That's what okay. That's what I thought we discussed.
Kevin, I think something else we have to keep in mind is how we keep those easements from getting blocked.
Right.
Because, if people park there or what have you, and then emergency call.
We'll have to really, when we see the plat come in, we can look at it as far as the specifics of it, but I think it'd be best if we had an easement that was separate from any parking area or anything like that for the home.
I agree.
So that.
I think that's what we have currently down at the Habitat place where parking occurs, right? So.
They did remove railroad tie, but that is a concern that they could still park cars in the event of an emergency. It's going to be difficult to get that fire truck back there. That is a concern for us.
Yeah.
Chief, can you access Frank Street? No difficulty?
It'd be tight, but I believe we could, sir.
The primary issue is there's not adequate flow in the hydrant. There's no hydrants there. There's not adequate flow to even add a hydrant. The line, we've looked, I think the line's only 2 or 2.5 inch in size, so even if you couldn't add a hydrant at all, so even if you could get down there, you wouldn't have any way to really fight a fire, as far as water supply anyway.
But he does from Enon Springs.
Right.
Okay.
I guess long-term, I know that we've looked at some upgrades to those older parts of town like this, and long-term, it may be okay. Right now, though, it's not the case. Because I know Mike's, Mr. Strange has had, they're working on putting a plan together to make those upgrades over time, but that's not there yet.
Okay. Any other questions? Then we'll move on to item 7, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28, part of parcel 44.00, containing approximately 22.26 acres. It's requested by Gary Martin on behalf of R&J Family LP from R6 to C2. The property is located on Sam Ridley Park West. This is a second reading. Kevin?
Yeah, this is just a rezoning request on Sam Ridley Parkway. It's a part of a parcel, about 22.26 acres. It's about 1,400 feet east of the intersection of Old Nashville Highway and Sam Ridley. This is consistent with our land use plan for that area. The Planning Commission did review this and did recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this?
Kevin, does that shape of that property take that particular design because of the cemetery up there?
Well, the existing C2 zone property, yes. The request is the area highlighted in yellow that's next to that. But you do have that odd shape of tract of land there. Yes, it is a cemetery coming from Old Nashville Highway.
Is that where the road's going to actually be, or is that just speculation?
That's speculation at this point. TDOT has to act because they do not have a fence cut at that location to access Sam Ridley there. They are applied for that to move one that they do have. TDOT has to approve that, and it hasn't happened yet, but it could be coming soon. We don't know, but not yet. So that's really that's primarily that's their idea where they want to access Sam Ridley, and then Jeannie Lane would be extended through this site, and we've talked to them. It would go all the way to Motlow Boulevard.
But we're going down 22 acres plus in R6.
Correct. And their big pictures, you probably will see more of that happen as they go eastward. But this is their first phase that they're
Well, and
looking at.
I suspect the reason it's designed that way is they probably have somewhat of a master plan that they've developed, and this is how they see this portion of it building out at this point.
They do. They've been working on some of that. Tom and I, and some others have met with their engineer primarily on that, so they are working towards that.
So this isn't the full amount here, this is just a portion of the
They
land
go
that they own.
all the way
They go
to
all-
Motlow.
Yeah,
Okay.
except for the YMCA, they go all the way to Motlow Boulevard.
And I know there was previous conversations about that, how close that red light may end up being if they ended up cutting in right there. That's across the street from, I guess, the mobile home park, so it's not really a cross street there. It doesn't really go anywhere, so it ends up being basically a three-way stop. I mean, I know there's another cut there, but there's nothing really back there but the mobile homes. So we wouldn't be able to put anything down next to Toots there in the future, right? TDOT probably wouldn't allow another cut that close.
Well, probably not another cut, and the proposed location that they're looking at would be too close to Needham Drive to have two lights that close together. And Needham is really too close to Old Nashville Highway in a lot of ways. But of course, it's already there. At least on the south side, it's already there, and it's planned on the north side.
But all that's TDOT's decision.
Yeah,
That is not our decision at all.
We're really waiting to see what TDOT does with the access, because we don't have any control over that. That's completely their decision. If they approve what's proposed here, it would be difficult that's gonna make it difficult decisions on where the lights go, because it's gonna be tough to put one at Needham and this location too.
Right,
So
okay.
it would be,
Other questions? Okay, everything here on out is all new stuff. So item 8 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the adoption and enactment of the Town of Smyrna Municipal Code, Title II, Boards and Commissions, etc., Chapter 7, Charity Assistance Fund Board, Section 704, Memorial Maintenance and Special Projects Subcommittee. This is a first reading. Nathan?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a new ordinance. What it basically would do is set up a subcommittee under the Charity Assistance Committee, which would collect money donated in memory of Captain Coos. This would alleviate the donations having to be made to the Rotary Club and would allow the town to accept those donations through charity assistance, and also sets up a board that would govern how the collected money is spent.
The main thing we're looking at right now is, the reason we looked at doing this was because of the run and the ongoing monies coming in for upkeep of the memorial, and the run is the main thing that we're doing right now. And so rather than having to have the Rotary do that, we were looking for a way that we could do that through the town. Any questions for Nathan on this?
So this just brings everything back in-house.
That's it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all it does. Okay, we will move on to item 9, which is consideration of an ordinance to amend Ordinance 18-17, adopting the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget, specifically the 2018-2019 fee schedule as it pertains to the municipal court, and this is a first reading.
Mayor and Council, this is just a house cleaning measure which would change the way some of the fees are referred to in the fee schedule, would change the language. There's currently a line called the diversion fee. It would change that to a dismissal fee for when the judge dismisses items with court costs. There's also the second part of that. There's something referred to in the fee schedule as diversion fee for corrected light violations. That would be changed to a dismissal fee reduced, and that would be charged if people had their license or insurance or whatnot in the day they got the ticket, they just didn't have it with them. That would be a reduced cost, and it's not affecting revenue or anything like that. It's just changing some references.
Okay, questions for Nathan on this?
So is it changing the references to line up with what already exists in the municipal code for those two issues? Or how they report it to the clerk's office?
It gives the judge discretion. The judge already has discretion to dismiss things the way she chooses, but she wanted to make sure that when she was dismissing something and charging costs, that there was somewhere in the fee schedule where that was authorized. And currently, under the current fee schedule, it's not expressly stated that she can do that. So we took, these are some kind of antiquated terms in the fee schedule, and it's the amounts that she's charging anyway. We're just referring to them the way they should be referred to, to reference what she's doing in court.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, we will move on to item 10, which is consideration of an ordinance to amend Town of Smyrna Municipal Code Title II, Boards and Commissions, etc., Chapter 7, Charity Assistance Fund Board, Section 705, Sister City Funding Subcommittee. This is a first reading. Jeff?
Yes, Mayor and Council, and Brian may want to speak more to it after I finish, but basically, just as you heard with the Memorial Fund, this would mirror that same type of organization, that it will create where those that want to donate to the Sister City program, currently they have to go through the chamber and sometimes even Rotary. And Brian, in looking at that, trying to make it more efficient, also trying to have a little more accountability that the town can keep an eye on those funds. We decided that this would be a good opportunity, since we already have a 501c3, that this will be a board of 5 people. That will just disperse those funds. Now, they will not take the place of Sister City. They're just for dispersing it, because we have to have a board, since it is a 501c3, to do that. And these funds will not be intermingled with Charity Assistance Fund or with the memorial funds.
And one of the things you and I had talked about that I had concern with was we didn't want the board having to come to us every time they had a $25 expenditure or things like that. And there are ways that we can keep from that happening. So, other questions for Jeff on this. It's just going to be a way for us to keep up with it in-house. I think it's probably a better way to do things than we've done. Yeah, a little bit smoother. Questions about this? Okay, then we will move on to item 11, which is consideration of an ordinance to amend the Town of Smyrna Municipal Code, Title II, Boards and Committees, etc., Boards and Commissions, etc., Chapter 5, Sister City Committee, Section 502, Membership. This is a first reading. Jeff?
Yes, Mayor and Council. This is sort of in tandem with the previous ordinance we just spoke of. However, we're also making additions to the Sister City. This is reference to the board itself. We're going to be expanding the board to include 9 members instead of 8, and that the council member that is assigned to this board will act as chairman of the board. In addition, as we've done now with our other boards of just catching up, we've got term limits as representation will allow. Sometimes you may not have enough people that apply, but we've got 2 term limits that are included in there. But obviously, because now that we have the subcommittee that's dispersing the funds, had to remove the reference of this board dispersing those funds. They'll just be using those funds.
Okay. So main differences are board composition, terms, and disbursement of funds as opposed to, okay. Questions or discussion on this? Steve, anything you want to add since you've been on this board?
I think these are all probably good and warranted changes. I think it's going to help make the board function and flow as good as it possibly can. So I think it's good.
And this committee has always done a great job. I mean, they have always been go-getters. Raising funds and then helping us find students to put in these positions. And there is so much that goes into this board, so I really appreciate all they've done. Hopefully the changes that we're looking at making will make things flow smoothly or continue to flow smoothly. So any other questions for Jeff? Okay, then we will put that on the agenda and we'll move on to item 12, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with the Tennessee Department of Transportation relative to the town of Smyrna's share of the cost for the design phase of the railroad crossing improvements at Washington Street. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. I submitted a couple of years ago for improvements along Washington Street to add some sidewalks and pedestrian gate arms to cross the railroad tracks. It got approved by TDOT on a 90-10 split. They've already paid for the NEPA, which is the initial environmental investigation. Now we're on to design phase. The total cost for that is $75,000. We're responsible for 10% of that, which is $7,500. So we'll be paying that to TDOT to cover the cost for design fees. And that's what this approval is for. Later on, when we get into construction, there will be an additional 10% that we'll have to pay for those construction costs as well.
Questions for Tom on this?
It's not necessarily for Tom, but you may know the answer. Probably more for Brian. Just curious, I don't remember budgeting for this. So where is this funds? What fund are these coming out of?
We have some, I'll lean on Rex a little bit, but basically we have some funds available on some other projects that we can move those funds around and make that work. I think the first payment's like $7,500 is basically what we're looking at. So, and then we'll make arrangements on the, when we get into the construction phase where the 10% will be a greater number, we'll make sure that that's in the budget.
So we're expecting that to be next year's budget?
Yes.
And we'll put a placeholder in?
Yes.
Some number that we estimate? Okay.
Great. I think this will be a really nice addition.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's one we've all been
I
wanting.
often park in that lot on this side and try to cross over when there's events, and it's somewhat challenging.
It
is.
I would agree. Okay. Moving on to item 13, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Sessions Paving relative to construction of the Weekly Lane Swan Drive intersection improvements projects. Tom?
Yes, we had just recently received approval from TDOT on the lowest responsive bidder, that's Sessions Paving. Came in right around $1.1 million. This is a contract to approve them to start work on the project.
Okay. Questions for Tom? Which will take care of all of the part on Weekly that did not get taken care of when it was resurfaced, because we purposefully didn't do that.
Right.
Because of this.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, item 14 is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute contracts with Waste Management Incorporated relative to the recycle bins on Town Hall and 106 G Street. And this item we are,
Mayor, that one needs to be removed.
Removed,
We've
yeah.
changed directions there and got another deal that we've worked out. Fortunately, with Rutherford County, we're going to have some recycling bins here at Town Hall, and I think the second one will go down at the town center. Is that right, Tom?
G Street.
G Street.
Yeah.
And the county's going to allow us to do that at no cost. So.
great. We will make sure that we get that out to the public once those are put out and exactly.
These are for our
Oh,
consumption.
for ours.
Yes, those
Okay.
are for our consumption only.
Item 15 is approval of the ranking of selection committee relative to the construction engineering inspection services for Sam Ridley widening project. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. We had 6 respondents for CEI, to provide CEI services, that's construction engineering inspection, for the Sam Ridley widening project. So when we get approval to go to the construction phase on that, we hire a contractor for it. The company we select will be working on our behalf to oversee the construction on the widening project. Rankings, we ended up with Weiser Consultants, had the highest score.
Questions for Tom on this? We'll put that on the agenda. Item 16 is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a renewal contract with Solitude Lake Management relative to the pond maintenance at J.J. McWilliams Old Rock Spring Park. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a second year we'd be asking for a contract with Solitude. It's taken a lot off the staff. They just basically treat the pond over at the library, but as you well know, there's a waterfall and a pump in there. It keeps the water aerated, and them keeping it clean is helping the maintenance out immensely over there and taking away a lot of maintenance and time for our staff.
I know this was last year when we looked at this. We were a little unsure just because we had always handled it, so things have
Yes,
gone
ma'am.
well.
Yes, ma'am. They do. That's what they do, and it's not what we do. So we were usually behind, and for the money, I think it's worth it and the time. So
Great.
it's worked out well.
Great. Any questions for Mike?
Sir? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is, and they put stone on top of it.
Okay, item 17 is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Jones Brothers Contractors LLC relative to the construction of the Nolan Drive relocation project. Mike?
Yes, ma'am. We discussed this a month ago, but we're putting it back on the agenda after talking to Brian. And we opened the bids on the 24th of January and had 2 contractors submit proposals, Jones Brothers being the lowest. And I've talked to them a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. But their bid was $2,777,351.12, which is about $200,000 less than Sessions Paving. So as you know, the scope of the project includes a roundabout, sidewalks, landscaping, lighting, and that type of thing. So also we included or added a right-hand turn lane to Sam Ridley Parkway. If you go up through there, you'll see that traffic backs up if you're going right, so we decided to add that. I did talk to them today as well, just kind of make sure all was good if this was approved. I think after a notice to proceed, they'd be in there clearing within a couple of weeks, and they were kind of excited because they're doing the Indian Springs Road project as well, and they could use some of that borrow to help on this project.
Questions for Mike on this?
Mayor, could I just interject a little bit, because it may surprise some people to see this back on the agenda. We did pull this item earlier based on we wanted to have some conversation with the council in relevance to all of our road projects, and in particular Jeannie Lane. What we were able to do based on the funding that's in this year's budget for Nolan Drive, because Jeannie Lane basically will be a 2.5 year project out by the time we get all the engineering study done, any property we have to buy, those kind of things. We felt it was, we never said this wasn't a good project. We just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of what projects we were looking at. So right now, I think our thinking is we would go forward with Nolan Drive. We would add funding in next year's budget to complete the Nolan Drive because of the difference in the original cost estimate versus what the bid came in. And what we'll also do is we'll add money in next year's budget, which you'll see in April, or you'll see a couple weeks before the retreat. What we'll do is we'll add money to begin the Jeannie Lane process, and then what we'll do is come back the next year and complete Jeannie Lane. So what we're looking at is a 3-year period completing both of these projects and staying within our budget.
Great. I'm glad you went back and you all looked at the finances and knowing that Jeannie Lane was a priority, but this was as well, and we're able to find the money to do both projects. So questions from council at all on this or the funding source?
So break that down again, because I know we had it in the budget for more than 1 year to do Nolan Drive is what I was thinking.
What we've got is the Nolan Drive original bid estimate was in the $1.8, $1.9 million. It came in over budget. So what we will be able to do is go ahead and start that project this year. If you approve it, we'll take the funding from this year and try to complete as much work going into the new budget year. And we'll add the additional budget dollars in the 2020 budget, 2019 budget. And then we'll complete Nolan Drive, but in the 2019 budget, or 2020 budget, Rex, keep me straight. You've had me looking at so many budgets, I can't keep which year I'm in. The 2020 budget, what we'll do is we'll complete Nolan Drive plus add the beginning funding for the Jeannie Lane to do things like right-of-way purchase, engineering, those kind of things. So we'll be working simultaneously on those projects over a 3-year period, and the funding will stretch over a 3-year period, utilizing what's in the budget for this year, what we'll budget for next year, and then we'll have a 3rd year that we'll finish up Jeannie Lane budget. And the work will accommodate that budget cycle. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does that help you?
That helps.
We had already budgeted this year, so we're just
Yes,
going to go ahead and spend what
it's
we're going
already
to
there.
do, and then we'll just add the remaining portion for
Next year.
Nolan next year.
Yeah, and then next year we'll also begin the process of incorporating
the
Jeannie
2-year
Lane.
Jeannie Lane.
Okay.
Okay.
So you don't anticipate any adverse effect as far as funding for Rocky Fork Union Springs or
No.
either Sam Ridley?
We're within the budget.
And that still allows us to keep the design that's being presented to us here, right? Because there was some conversations about we may cut some of the design, remove the roundabout, do some other things to try to get back under budget.
Based on,
we're going to leave it alone.
Yeah, based on your desire to do Jeannie Lane, and we feel like we've got a design that will be comparable in work, it's just, it's going to take a while to get the engineering, it's going to take a little while to get the right-of-way purchased and work out all those, those things. So it's a 2 to 2.5 year out project. So that give us the leeway to go ahead and spend the money that's in the budget now and keep all the projects going.
The one thing I'm excited about the Nolan Drive project, you can see on the map, is the future park entrance on that back side. It's not something we'll be doing right now, but it's there and ready to go. I think we all realize that that's going to probably be needed sooner rather than later, so.
That'll be a great addition for
it will be.
Getting to the football fields, getting to the Coos Memorial, without
To the
everyone
new-
having to come in and out
That
the
one
same entrance on
entrance. Yep.
Sam Ridley.
Safety too.
Yep.
Well, and also
and-
to the new playground.
Well, 4th of July, when we're trying to get people in and out of that park, I mean, it just gives you a whole nother path to get in and out. So I
Yes.
think all of it's a great design, and I look forward to it being done.
Yep.
Is the Greenway, is that going beside it now? Where it says Greenway Trail Connector, is that going to be done when this is done?
Well, yes, sir. I'm not looking at the map, but that section along Nolan Drive will kind of go away. But
Okay.
you'll go to the roundabout and cross and then follow the road. I think you can see it on there.
Okay.
On the map and just kind of follow
So
that.
it starts kind of there then?
Yes, sir. I mean, you'll still have a trailhead at the event center and be able to build
This part right here
sidewalk
goes
up there to the
away.
roundabout
That
and
part
cross.
goes away and just follows the road.
There won't be a bathroom there, right?
The event center.
Every 100 feet.
Yeah. You're not far from one.
Maybe we get Tom to put one with every truncated dome.
We may have to have a truncated dome to get to the bathroom.
Or we could just have a truck follow along with a porta pot beside you.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we will move on to item 18, approval of the terms of an authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Barge Solutions relative to the construction, administration, and engineering inspection for the Nolan Drive relocation project. Mike, anything on this?
Just to let you know, it's going to be half-day CEI on this, and that was kind of the recommendation from Barge Solutions, and they'll be out there an awful lot as needed, but that allows them to look over the shop drawings, represent the town, and they designed it so they can answer for anything that they've designed there.
Give me timeline on this project again.
270 day from notice to proceed.
So when should we be thinking it's going to be done?
It's going to be near the end of the year, I would say. You know, weather
Permitting?
Yeah, weather permitting. If we had if we have another month like February.
Early spring.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Item 19 is approval of the terms of an authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Neely Coble Company relative to the 2020 pumper truck.
Mayor, council, we went out to bid for a new apparatus, and we're here this evening to ask for y'all's permission to give Mayor Reed the okay to sign the agreement with Neely Coble Company for our new apparatus.
Chief, you have expensive toys.
Yes, ma'am.
You should see his budget.
Questions for Chief?
Yeah, Chief, forgive me since I wasn't here last year. This is, I assume that this is in this current year's budget. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Is this under budget on the
Yes, sir,
cost?
it is.
Okay, good.
Where will this truck be used? Is it going to go, which of the locations are you going to use this?
It'll probably go out to Station 6. It'll be a replacement, possibly for the county truck or our 83 model.
Okay.
Questions, other questions for Chief? Okay. Item 20 is consideration of the declaration of surplus items. Rex, what goodies do we have?
Just a plethora of valuables, or used to be valuable. In your package, you have a list of the surplus items that we need, that we request to be sold at auction. The list includes vehicles and some miscellaneous other things. There will be some computer equipment that will be added, and we'll get that list out to you early next week. We seek permission to conduct an online auction to sell all these items, and the auction will be advertised in the Murfreesboro Post, on the website, and Channel 3. All the surplus items will be sold through Gov Deals, an online auction company.
Britt has a birthday coming up. I may have to look through these items.
Did you see it? There's a Michael Kors watch.
Oh, did you see the Louis Vuitton belts? So,
Britt is like at 98 Central.
you think?
Mayor, there's also a Gucci belt in there. I want to
Oh, a
make sure
Gucci
you
belt
be
too?
aware of that.
Maybe I ought to bid on both. I would not recommend it. You would not recommend that? But he forgot the donuts last time, so maybe that's what he's going to get. Any questions for Rex on these surplus items? Then we will move on to item 21, which is consideration of a resolution to request funds on unclaimed property held by the state of Tennessee. Rex?
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution we do each year. Passing this resolution allows the town to ask the state for a refund. This refund is made up of property of outstanding checks, credit balances on closed utility accounts, and vendor accounts that were first held by the town for a few years. And we sent them to the state, and they've held them for a few years, and now we're eligible to ask for a refund on that.
Questions for Rex on this? Item 22 is approval of the terms of an authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with ATC Group Services LLC relative to the material testing services for the Potomac Place Extension Project. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We had asked a few different contractor or consultants to provide some quotes for material testing. what they'll be doing is doing compaction testing, proof rolling, as well as concrete tests and asphalt tests for the construction of Potomac Place project. The lowest came in with ATC Group at $15,000.
Questions for Tom?
I just wasn't real clear on what they're testing for. Is it to see if how the gravel will sit on the new road, or
To
can you
make sure
explain that
it's
to me?
compacted enough and strong enough to be able to withstand the loads. There's usually like on subgrade, which is the bottom layer, either the soil or stone, it has to have a 98% Proctor test, meaning 98% compaction, so it doesn't move. And then as you lay down layers of base stone and some additional compaction testing there as well. When they lay the storm piping in, they put dirt on top of that and want to make sure that dirt is compacted as well to make sure that nothing shifts and sinks as they finish up the project and build up the roadway.
Okay.
Okay. Item 23 is consideration and approval of risk management policies. Ms. Kay, how are you tonight?
Fine, thank you.
Great.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Before you have 3 policies that are being asked to be implemented as risk control techniques to safeguard the town against possible losses.
Okay. Questions for Kay? Okay, then we will put that on the agenda. Item 24 is consideration of appointments to boards and committees. I'd like to let the public know there's still time to submit application if you'd like to serve on a board or committee. You can go online or you can come here to the town to fill out an application. You'll have probably right up until the day before our council meeting to submit application, and a list of each one of these boards and committees is online, as well as a description that tells you about the committee and what days and times that the committees meet. So we encourage you to submit application. Item 25 under other, we have 3 items under other. All 3 of these deal with appointments to boards and committees. These will be in addition to the expiring terms. We have 2 members from the BZA whose terms end in 2020, and we are needing to fill those positions because of absences. And that's one of the things that I would ask people that are submitting for committees is make sure that you have the time to commit to be able to serve on these boards. We had a situation this month that I think, was it 2 groups or 1 group that was coming before the board to do business? One group was coming before the board to do business, and we didn't have a quorum. So they were unable to take care of their business, which puts them off another 30 days possibly on their project. So I know sometimes jobs or things come up that you can't foresee, but for the majority of the time, we need you to be at the committee meeting so that we can conduct business. So those 2 for BZA, in addition to the other, I think BZA had 2 this time that were that terms were up. So that means there'll be 4 BZA appointments. We also have 1 member from the Beer Board, Jerry Green, whose term ends 2021, and he has had to resign. So we will have an additional Beer Board position up, and there was already 1 member from Beer Board, so now we'll have 2 to fill on Beer Board. And then Debbie Michelson has had to resign from the Arts Commission, and her term ended 2020, so we'll also need to fill that position as well. So lots of opportunities for citizens to get involved through our boards and committees. Is there anything else under other, Brian?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then we will move on to our director's report. So, Chief?
Yes, ma'am, Mayor and Council. Just to keep y'all informed, I recently attended a, I guess you'd call it a summit of various law enforcement leaders from around the Middle Tennessee area where we discussed the issues that all of us are having with the amount of auto burglaries, auto thefts, and even the increase in police pursuits, all associated with the same thing. So one thing that has actually improved and hopefully will help us have an impact on that type of crime here is we're starting to share more information statewide, where before we would share local county. I mean, us and Rutherford County, Laverne, Murfreesboro, we all shared, but you didn't necessarily share with Clarksville. You didn't necessarily share with Springfield, things like that. And so now we're seeing more of an increase in sharing of information, and the surprising thing is the amount of crimes that are here, that are associated with here, are also associated with Brentwood or associated with Nashville or whoever. So hopefully we're going to start getting a better handle on that crime, because it has gone up every year here in our community. And the only other thing I've got is our Citizens Police Academy is going on right now. I think we're in our 4th or 5th week, and so far I'm assuming it's a success. I've not heard any complaints. I know one of the officers had one of the academy people in his car last night, and as he drove closer to my home, he said, "Oh, by the way, the chief lives up here." And this person said, "Well, he must live in a mansion." Needless to say, this individual was very disappointed. So anyway, but it's going very well, and I'm very happy and excited about our CPA.
I've had 4 different people that are in the class tell me what a great experience it is, and as much as they thought they knew about the town and the police department, they had no idea how little that they knew. So I think it's a great experience. I read the weekly report about training, doing the testing for new officers. And so I think sometimes the public perceives getting new officers as something really easy to find. So talk a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's a nationwide problem, and unfortunately, I mean, and I was even telling Mr. Hercules and Mr. Craig this yesterday. I had a conversation yesterday morning with the assistant chief from Manchester that recently, when they posted, they only had 20 applicants total. Murfreesboro chief and I were talking yesterday at lunch about how he is hopefully getting 5 new positions in the budget, but he goes, "I can't get the positions filled that I've got open right now." So unfortunately, it's an issue, and Mr. Hercules had asked us to call randomly 8 to 10 people that did not show for this testing, because we had 42 scheduled to test and only 14 showed up. So Marcia, my administrative assistant, called today 10 people. Now 4, she was still waiting to call her back, but the others, 3 of them stated that they had forgot. 1 stated that he just got off work and didn't think about it. 1 stated that he couldn't get off work. And then 1 stated some long story about being in Margarita House and voices telling him not to go to the testing. So,
which is probably good that one didn't show up.
That was probably a good idea for him not to come to the testing. Yeah, so anyway, but unfortunately, it's not only an issue that we're facing, it's an issue that every single police department is facing and every sheriff's department is facing, and it's trying to get people to go into a field of service. Because something tells me even the fire chief may be experiencing the same amount of no-shows. It's just very frustrating.
Right.
So, but we're going to look at some alternative things to do, maybe start doing some testing on the weekends when people normally are off work. And I hate to put it this way, but maybe almost to the point of holding their hand. Of, consistent reminders of, hey, remember us, remember we're testing tomorrow or whatever. But we're going to try to look at some alternative things and see if we can work our way through this.
Great.
I'm not going to set up testing down there at the Margarita House.
We could probably run a few off, yeah. So.
But I want to compliment both chiefs actually, and working with Jeff Craig. We knew going into this that there was quite a few openings that we had in 2 of our departments that we needed to fill just from the workload. And I mean, we're in single-digit numbers as far as our back up to full staff in both police and in fire. So I want to compliment Mr. Craig and both the chiefs for the work they're doing. We've stayed very active. It is tough. You're talking about Murfreesboro and Manchester. I think I heard something on the news the other night where Metro Nashville's over 100 officers down. I would hate for us to be in the position we were percentage-wise had that kind of deficit in patrolling our streets or serving our citizens with fire. So it is an issue, but it's something we're taking on and we're tackling, so.
Great. Questions for Chief? And in regards to car burglaries, just lock your car.
Well, that's one thing, and I have to give Connie Pigram a shout out. Every day for a week, we submitted something out on social media saying, please get your stuff out of your cars, lock your cars. Please get your stuff out of your cars, lock your cars. And to be honest with you, I'm not saying that worked, but talking to detectives this morning, there's been a slight reduction in the amount of auto burglaries that are coming in. But we have videos of where the people are being dropped off at the entrance to a subdivision, and they're spanning out. I mean, they're just marching out through that subdivision, and all they're doing is trying car doors. So, again, take your stuff out, lock your car. It's as simple as that.
Yep. Thanks, Chief. Tom?
As you know, there's quite a bit of flooding happened last week and last weekend. First of all, I want to thank the guys in the Streets and Stormwater Department, Lee Parnell's guys, for getting out there and prepping everything ahead of time, cleaning out drainage, culverts, inlet structures to make sure that we got positive drainage out of areas to keep any roadways from flooding. We did have one roadway flood. That was Poplar Wood. We had to close that for a few days. It's reopened. But we do have a plan in place to come in and fix that problem, adding a drainage culvert underneath it, raising the elevation of the road. Currently, we're planning to do that project the week of March 25th. That's the week of spring break. So Stewart's Creek schools will be closed at that time, so it will be a good time to shut down the road and get that problem resolved. Also, we've been going around fixing a lot of potholes that occurred because of the heavy rain conditions. If you're aware of any other potholes, please let me know, or any other flooding areas, please let me know.
I had somebody ask me, you know how we have neighborhood watches within the neighborhood? Is there any way, if we have neighborhoods come to us, or have you heard of anybody starting anything where they're looking at storm drain cleanup within their neighborhood, where they're cleaning out ditches, where they're doing that sort of thing?
I have heard of I can't remember which community. I thought it was Charlotte, North Carolina did it, where they did like an inlet structure, and their responsibility was to go out and make sure that was maintained and cleaned. That's something that we can certainly start here. We have the Adopt a Roadway program. We have the Adopt a Stream program as well. That's certainly something we can look into.
It sure would be nice if individuals within their own neighborhood, I mean, as I drive in sometimes in our neighborhoods, you know, there are ditches that are clogged up, or there's debris in the way, and if we could just work with our own neighbors, I think it would take care of, not all of it, obviously, but at least some of it. So.
And just making people aware that when you know a big storm's going to come in, don't put your trash can in the ditch.
Right.
Don't leave your bags of leaves in the ditch either. That clogs drainage culverts up real quick.
Okay, questions for Tom?
No, but I definitely want to thank the departments for everything they did. I know that last year we had a couple of quick rains kind of like this, and we got bombarded with Facebook posts of people's house flooding, driveway flooding, whatever. Maybe some of you got more than I did, but this time I didn't get a lot of that. I saw a couple of posts here or there, but it wasn't. It looks like the proactive work you guys are doing actually did help.
Thank you.
Because I didn't get a lot of complaints or calls about specific issues. So I appreciate it. For the amount of rain we got in about a 36 or 48-hour period, it's pretty impressive that it wasn't worse than it was.
Yeah, thank you.
I was going to comment too. Last month we met and we looked at some of the road improvement projects we've got coming, and Tom sort of conducted that meeting for us. And once again, I want to say thank you. We've got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of projects getting ready to begin, it sounds like anyway.
Yes.
And so all this behind-the-scene work is really kind of coming to fruition all around the same time this year. So thanks for staying on top of that and keeping us posted on it. There's a lot of good road projects coming in this year, next year, and so pretty excited about that.
Tom, would you share one other thing? At the end of the season for asphalting, we were not completely done with our milling and resurfacing. So would you kind of update us
Yeah, I think the first week of March, we're looking at getting to, I think it's the Jefferson Square area, it's Constitution, and is one of the streets. There's 2 other streets in that area that we are looking to get in there and do milling and resurfacing on to finish out our budget for the 18-19 fiscal year.
Then there's also 2 other spots, Needham Drive and Sam Davis at
Yes.
Lowry Street, that we'll be repairing, just so everybody knows.
Great. Other questions for Tom?
Thought you might like that.
Thanks.
That's much needed.
Kevin?
Mayor and Council, we do have Planning Commission next week, and I know there's a lot of folks, at least in past, pretty interested in the Gwynn Farms development. That will be on the agenda next week. So that's a large development that's being proposed on Rock Springs Road. Got several other items too that will be coming to the council from the Planning Commission. Also next Thursday, we will be having a joint meeting with Planning Commission and Council at 4 o'clock before the Planning Commission meeting. We do have the draft downtown master plan. We'll be kind of going over that and kind of presenting that to you guys. So,
Questions for Kevin on this? Thanks, Kevin. Mike?
Yes, ma'am. Just like Tom, a little bit of a flood update. We still have 3 parks closed, Rotary Soccer Park, Volunteer Park in Sharp Springs, and a couple of portions of our Greenway. I just want to say thanks to all the departments that's helped out. Smyrna Fire Department is helping with pictures and just keeping us involved and really leading the way for us, so we appreciate that. The water has receded at most of the parks, but it's not out, so it's out of the concession stand out at Volunteer Park, and we started cleanup today at the Rotary Soccer Park and got most of the concessions completed and cleaned up. I think we got some more pressure washing to do, but we should be out there tomorrow. Also, just update on Cedar Stone Park. Of course, February wasn't a great month for construction, but they are planning to pour the concession stand slab tomorrow, so that's some progress there. Then they'll start block work after that. Utility install continues on. They're having to do some blasting out there, which y'all might understand. There's a lot of rock out there. And then they send a lot of submittals into us for reviews and colors and that type of thing. So although the weather's not been great, they are moving, and I really appreciate that. Other thing I just want to say is we've the Event Center and ourselves hosted the Tennessee Recreation and Parks Athletics and Maintenance School yesterday and today, and we were able to show off our lunch that the chef and his staff put together every day, and then also the outdoor center. So we had 50-plus people from across the state attend and stay here in Smyrna, and I think it went really well, and Jimmy Stitt kind of headed that up, and obviously the association, so we appreciate them doing that.
Great. Questions for Mike?
We had a March 20 deadline. We had a progress meeting Tuesday or Wednesday, and they requested another month and a half. We may give them another 30 days and just revisit that. Obviously, they couldn't pave anything, so now it's underwater in some of those sections, but nothing that's in stone's underwater. So it may be toward the end of April, unless we just continue to get more rain.
Other questions for Mike? Thanks,
Thank
Mike. Jeff?
Sure thing. Mayor, Council, I did mention a couple of our small projects in our weekly update. I won't go into all of those, but I just want to mention we are getting ready to enter our busy season for hiring seasonal employees for the summer. We have 13 new job openings on our website right now. Some good news, we are in the process of filling 6 of our firefighter spots right now. They're finishing up their pre-employment process. We also have 3 police officers almost finished and 2 dispatchers. So we'll be glad to get those folks on board shortly.
Questions for Jeff? Thanks. Robert?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Information Services has been working behind the scenes on some infrastructure upgrades, installing some new equipment, upgrading some existing equipment here at City Hall and elsewhere. One of the software projects that we've been working on for a while has been a new version of the budgeting software that helps prepare each year's budgets. And this has been pretty much a ground-up rewrite, and we are nearing completion of that. And that will be deployed and ready for the next fiscal year budgeting process.
Questions for Robert? Thank you. Rex?
January local sales tax received $1,574,000. That gives us a year-to-date surplus of $374,845. January state share tax received $599,682. That gives us a year-to-date surplus of $97,096. Last month, Brian asked me to do a mid-year financial review for the council, and we prepared it, and we've got some slides for your to view tonight. I think what we'll do is we'll start with the general fund and with revenues. And this covers the term of July of 18 through January of 2019. That's 7 months. The far left-hand column is the category of revenue. And then we have what we adopted in the budget. And then the next column, the year-to-date realized, is what we've received. And the percent realized is the percentage of realized over the budget. And if you look down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a monthly comparative, and it's highlighted in yellow. And 7 months divided by 12 months gives us a percent of 58%. So what we want to do is for the revenues, it's ideal at this time of the year if we're at 58% or higher, but all of our revenues are not systematically 1/12 received each month. Some are seasonal.
Are law enforcement fines seasonal?
That's the drugs.
Okay.
I can speak on it if you like.
No, that's okay.
And and for property taxes in the tax line, the first line, and since the county collects our taxes, property tax for us, we're running a month behind getting the money from what we used to when we collected it. So that 55% total for all the general fund is a little bit distorted because of that. I feel like we're on track for our general fund revenues.
In regards to general sessions, is that because, and you may not know the answer to this, is that because collections are down, or is that, or do we know?
I don't really know. I looked. I thought somebody may ask. And they're down in all their revenue accounts, and particularly in court costs, it's at 43% for the year for what was budgeted.
Miss Diane, is it second year that we've had county collecting our taxes? Or just second?
It is.
How's it, are you pleased with how things are going?
Well, I can't see anything, so I don't know how it's going.
But I guess from your end, is there any issues that you see? I mean, concerns or any of that?
No.
No, okay.
Just a month of delay, right?
Yeah.
As a taxpayer, I like it.
Well, as long as people understand that that the counties is included on that, it does show that. Sometimes I think I've had some that haven't realized.
Paper. This was
Right.
Smyrna, and you could see how much lower Smyrna's taxes were
We
than
still
what the
get
counties
those
are.
calls, and Yes.
I mean, it is broken out down there, but
Yeah.
you have to study it to figure out what
Right.
it's saying.
Right.
But
I think it's a lot easier to just send one.
still had to go to Laverne though. They haven't got on board the train yet.
Just sell all your property in America, don't worry about it.
I have one lot I'll sell you. We can close on it tonight.
Any other questions for Rex on this?
Yeah, Rex, on the year-to-date realized, and I know you're saying that this is basically 1/12. Where should we be at? Should we be at 24 million right now? Historically, where would we be at, I guess, compared to our budget right now? Instead of 7/12, should we be at 6/12, or are we usually a little bit above? Like I said, it don't go into, seasonal stuff, I guess, is what we're talking about.
Well, let's talk about property tax. Property tax is one of those, it's a seasonal revenue, because it starts in October 1st and primarily ends at the end of February. We'll probably take in 98% of the $13 million we have budgeted in those months.
Okay.
So we're behind 2 heavy months in taxes. So I feel like we're ahead of where we should be,
Okay.
or where we're budgeted.
Okay.
Historically speaking, I think we're on track there also.
I know, in looking at some numbers in my previous life, sometimes they would go, instead of like this, straight, sometimes they'd kind of go like this, and that's the way I looked at it. I would look at it to say, okay, where were we last year at this point in time of the year? Are we where we should be, or we're bringing in more money than we should have, or we could have? So that way I could kind of see if I was ahead of the budget or if I was behind the budget, instead of just taking it 1/12, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'll do some research on that, and I'll shoot you historically where we're at and where we've been in January. But, I mean, as long as we meet our budget, or we're ahead of our budget, then that's, for each year, then that's kind of my emphasis.
Okay. Well, don't go do any extra work, just for me.
All right, we'll move on to the general fund expenditures. Far left-hand corner is by department in the general fund. It's expenditures over the next 2 slides, and you can see, compare your numbers there. Really looking at the percentage used is what we should be looking at tonight, compared to the monthly comparative.
Would it be fair to say that this is less seasonal? That this is more, because most of this is labor, right?
Most of it's labor and benefits.
So it is
some
more
other things
like
are other operating items. So my concern would be if we were over 58%, and sometimes that's not an issue because of capital projects. And I've got a couple that on the next slide that we'll discuss on capital projects. Any questions on this page? Now, this is the last slide on the expenditures. And as you can see, total for the fund, the general fund, we're 49%. So being at or under 58% is where we need to be. So being at 49, we're in good shape there. The health, welfare, and culture, we pay that twice a year, July and January, and we're over a little bit because we decided to increase the Linebaugh Library capital projects donation by $24,000. The parks,
Which was for their
Air
air conditioners.
Yes.
That was maintenance, yeah.
Yeah.
the parks is at 64%, and they should be commended for that because they've spent their capital projects the way that I asked them to. I asked the departments to go ahead and knock those out so that they're not waiting till April, May, and July to start them. So really, they're on track with their budget. There's no concern there. And the same thing with the event centers, capital projects that has got them above the 58%. The transfer to debt service, most of our debt is paid in May. So that's why it's low there. Any questions on this slide? The general fund. We're estimating the surplus for 18 and 19 to be somewhere between 3.5 million and 4. Of course, this estimate is based on data through, January of 2019, and I can promise you that will change. Most of the money that will be in surplus will be due to vacant positions in the town. So as I hear police and fire are hiring folks, then yes, that number will change. State Street Aid. Our revenues are at 66%, expenses at 55%, with a comparative of 58%. We're in good shape there. We're estimating this surplus to be somewhere between $75,000 and $85,000 for the year. Any questions there? Drug fund revenues at 31%, expenses at 58%.
Rex, if you would back up one, and I mean, with all the bad weather we've had, especially hard on the roads and everything like that, I mean, are we going to be able to get by with what we budgeted for the rest of this year? I mean, there's going to be need for any further expense?
I don't foresee any additional expense on that. A lot of what, with repairs to roads, a lot of that, especially if it's a state road that comes out of a certain pot of money that we get reimbursed through TDOT, the local roads that we do any milling resurfacing on for small patch areas or just doing cold patch, I don't believe we'll be over budget on that.
Thank you, sir.
Chief, you want to talk about the revenues in the drug fund? I mean, that comes from the courts.
I can. A lot of this comes from circuit court. A lot of this money comes from the circuit court, and one thing that our narcotics division has primarily done over the last couple of years is done more sealed indictments, which means that is going to go straight to circuit court. And a lot of times in circuit court, things get bogged down, and it takes a while for money and expenses to come in. So Captain Spearman monitors that fund pretty hard, and so he's not concerned about it. So as long as he's not concerned about it, I'm okay. So.
Impact fee fund, revenues are at 78%, expenses at 37%, with a monthly comparative of 58%. We're doing really well there. We're anticipating a surplus of $1,150,000 to $250,000. On the revenue side, there's 3 different types of impact fees we collect. Some goes to the roads, parks, and public safety. The roads in January is at 103% of what we budgeted. Parks is at 49%, and public safety at 77% of the budget.
Any concerns about the 6-year time frame for any of the money?
No, ma'am.
Mayor, you might want to hold that question till you see the budget that we're going to propose to you.
Gotcha.
Stormwater fund. Revenues are at 60%, expenses at 23%. Expenses are down because we had a major capital project that's been delayed. So we're estimating a surplus for this year in the neighborhood of $395,000 to $404,000. Questions on that? Insurance fund, the town is a self-insured entity. Our revenues are at 63% and our expenses at 58%. So we're really on track for the insurance fund. We estimate a surplus between $1 million and $1.2 million. I did not include the funds that revenues are primarily funded by transfers between funds, and those funds are the debt service fund and the capital projects fund. So now we're into the water and sewer fund. Revenues are at 50%, expenses are at 46%. We're estimating an operating income for the year for between $4.2 and $4.5 million. We're a little bit behind on revenues, but we have a major customer that we bill between March and October of each year, so I think we'll catch up to our budget on that. Plus, we've had a very wet couple of months, and that eats into consumption. Natural gas fund, revenues at 62%, expenses at 56%. We're on track there for pretty much a break-even year. We estimate surplus of $560,000 to $580,000. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Brian and Rex, both, we appreciate you bringing this to us. I think it's something that we've not looked at in the past, but it's something that is very beneficial to see exactly where we are in the budget this time of year. So, questions for Rex or Brian on this?
I agree. It's sort of a help report.
Yes.
And, it's a good report.
Great.
I appreciate being
Yeah.
able to see these numbers.
Yeah.
As Rex pointed out, I think the thing that he and I have been looking at as we reviewed these numbers, we're pretty much right on track where we need to be. I think the one thing I would say is, you know, when we look at some of these and we begin to talk about surpluses, I want to be very cautious that it's not a pool of money that we're having surplus dollars. I mean, we have several projects like the parks and those kind of, the Cedar Stone Park and stuff. Some of these monies will flow over, and that's how we budgeted to build that park, is being able to take some of those surpluses and put those against those. You know, on the water fund, as somebody pointed out a minute ago, Mike Strange had to leave, and I'll get into his report in a few minutes, but you know, we've got some problems in our downtown area that we're going to have to resolve with some antiquated, and not necessarily antiquated, some older water lines that we're now getting into that time of life with those water lines. We're going to have to replace some of those. So, you know, what we're trying to do is make sure we're building those funds so that we can bite off and chew some of those pieces without having to come back and, you know, blow out the budget. So just want to make you aware of those.
Well, and that's one of the things that we as a council have talked about for a long time, is having funds available when we want to do those big projects, when we want to go to TDOT and bring money to the table to be able to say, look, we're ready to do this road project and here's our portion. So,
yeah. And you've heard me say this, I mean, as we have been going through the process, and each of these directors have heard this from me, I mean, we're building a pretty flat budget. You know, the economy is continuing to be good. You heard those numbers a while ago where we're at on the tax collections and those kind of things. But what we're seeing is a levelization. I mean, it's still a solid economy, but it's not growing proportionately like it has the last couple of years. It's kind of leveling off. So we're trying to live within that same levelized budget, and that's what you'll see. So,
I know Mayor talked about the 6-year window with the impact fees, and I don't know if the public realizes that we have to spend that money. We don't get to pool it and hold on to it. We have to apply it towards public safety and roads and parks. And so, you know, whether you like growth or not, a lot of that growth does bring in those impact fees, which offsets our taxpayers' expenses. So it doesn't always pay for growth, but it contributes to some of the needs that we have from those funds. So.
Questions for Rex? Thanks. Kay, anything?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
I have been meeting with Mr. Peach now that I report to him, and he and I have been discussing and different risk management policies or procedures that we would like to implement that would be in the best interest of the town. So that will be something that he and I will be continuously working on.
Great. Questions for Kay? Thank you. Steve?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Rex's report indicated on the impact fees being up about 20 points higher than where we might be at this time, that reflects that we have a lot of construction going on here. We're quite busy. In addition to our work, we're also taking on a little bit of Laverne's work too. Their building official is out for a while, so we're doing some of their plan reviews for them to assist them. Only other thing I was going to mention to you is a couple of fairly good sized projects. One of them is just finished. We issued a certificate of occupancy yesterday for the Traditions. They're on Rock Springs Road, the assisted living and the memory care portion of it. And we had a pre-construction meeting today for another pretty large project that's about to get started, and that's the Avid Hotel, which is going to go on the corner of Sam Ridley and Expo Drive. So one pretty good size one wrapping up and another one about to start.
Right. Speaking of the memory care, where have we talked to those developers about where they are with their mast arms and lately?
They are ordered, and I mean, we knew it was going to be a 3 to 4 month delay on those, so.
But no updates?
There's no updates. I know they've got all the electrical work done. They've got all their foundations up. We've been staying pretty consistent with them as far as keeping up with them. But
can you just do a follow-up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for Steve?
Did you say you wanted him to check up on that?
Yeah, I asked. Tom's writing it, so.
Okay.
Follow up. Hey, Hal.
Hey, good evening. We finally got the dam started releasing water, and we're draining off at the golf course. And overnight, we're about 95% drained off, so back completely open. A couple of things to make the public aware of. March 11th, 12th, and 13th, we will be aerifying all 27, actually all 29 holes, but it's something that we have to do every March, and we aerify the greens and then top dress them and fertilize them. And it's about a 3 to 5 week healing process to get them back to where they were, but it's something we have to do twice a year. I also get reports from Golf Now about all sorts of data through Golf Now. One of the things that they recommended was that we move from 5 days out on a tee time to 8 days out on a tee time. Their statistics show that people that are traveling, especially, it gives them a better opportunity to forecast where they're going to be. So we started this past Monday, and we posted it on Facebook, but just wanted to make you guys aware and make the public aware that we are now taking tee times 8 days in advance.
Great. Questions for Hal? Thanks. Chief?
Mayor, Council, as several have mentioned, it was a wet weekend and wet week last week, and I greatly appreciate all the fire department and all the personnel that were out in the rain working to make sure roads were closed and everything was safe. We are continuing working on our expo, which will be March 30th. Our CPR AED class is full. I appreciate everybody's interest in it. We have signed up 130 people to take that class on the 30th. And that's all I have this evening.
Great. Anything else for Chief? Thanks, Chief. Ms. Diane?
Well, with February being our shortest month, we have issued 54 new business licenses. Seems like everybody wants to open a new business, but quite a few of those are from contractors that we get with the help of the codes department. So making sure we get our share of the money.
Questions for Diane?
and property tax collections will go up because most of them are paid today. I can relay that from past experience.
Well, sounds like you've got Mike Strange's report first before your own.
Yes, I do. Mike apologizes. He was actually supposed to be in Laverne tonight with Bert. We have a workshop with them as we supply natural gas to some of the Laverne properties. At their workshop tonight, we had to do a presentation on natural gas safety. But unfortunately, Mike actually got called away, an accident with his mother who lives with him. She broke her arm, I believe. So he is at home, and Bert is handling the natural gas workshop with the town of Laverne. And I do want to point out that Steve mentioned, Laverne did reach out to us. Their codes inspector had a pretty significant trauma with health, and I'd just like to say thank you to Steve and his group for stepping up, and we're going to be supplying some help to them over the next 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, I think. And the town of Murfreesboro also stepped up and are helping them. The other thing that Mike wanted me to share with you is the survey has been completed on the proposed Olive Branch sewer extension, and Dempsey Dilling is currently working on alignment, and once the alignment is completed, the right-of-way acquisition will be the next phase we'll go into. So that project continues to move forward as we talk about some of those extra funds. That's where some of that's some of those type projects are going to eat away at those pretty quickly. I know the chief has already mentioned this, but I wanted to put it up for the television audience. Saturday, March 30th from 9 to 2 at the Smyrna Event Center. We'll be doing the Family Safety Expo. The fire department puts this on every year. It's a great event. And, you know, coming through this last weekend and some of the things we dealt with, this is a great place to come and learn and help your family understand what to do in case of an emergency like flooding, tornadoes, fire, those type things. It's free to the public. I think our class, though, on the CPR class you said is full. We were at the target of 130. So that class is full, but there will be plenty of things. There'll be vendors, you know, with some resources that people may want to consider for their own home protection and that kind of stuff. So did want to point that out. I know I'm being somewhat redundant, but I wanted to say from the town manager's desk, thank you to the fire department, the police department, the streets department, and also Parks and Rec. The way we responded this past weekend to what could have been a very serious situation. We did have some flooding in one of our mobile home parks that affected about 32 units that was encompassed in ankle-deep water. Everybody stepped up, did the right thing. We offered those people some relief. We worked with the Red Cross. Chief has a great rapport with them. We did get a shelter opened here in Smyrna for Rutherford County. We had a van available to transport if needed. Everybody came together and just did a fabulous job, and that's what we would expect as we provide those type services to our citizens. So I just want to say thank you to each of those departments and all the work that was done to make the situation safe, whether it was closing the road, blocking off the parks, maybe getting a few appliances off the floor at the parks so that we didn't have extra expenses of replacing some things and making that safe. The streets, I know Saturday night we had people on call, came in. I know Lee Parnell himself worked most of the day Saturday just riding around and observing the situation to make sure we were under control. And then, of course, the chief and his staff, all the work they did at Maple Manor Trailer Park. I just continue to appreciate, and you guys earn my respect in the way you handle those kind of things. So, also wanted to say a little shout out to the Red Cross for being a great partner in coming down and getting the shelter open immediately and working with our local Church of Christ down the street here on Lowry Street. Tom mentioned potholes are an after effect of flooding, and trust me, I've seen a few around town, but about as fast as I see them, they're getting them plugged back up for us. But you know, if any of the citizens do see some potholes that maybe we've missed or we haven't gotten to yet, I should say, don't hesitate to give us a call. Call Streets Department, get them on the list. We'll take care of them as quick as possible. Okay. I had the opportunity this week. Unfortunately, I had to miss a SIMA meeting, but I did have the opportunity to speak at Stewart's Creek to the Interact Club. First time I've been to Stewart's Creek, and I just want to brag on that school. What a tremendous asset. I felt like I was at a college. I mean, it's not just an educational institution for high school, They have a veterinarian program, they have a RIM program, they have a judicial program, they've got a courtroom that I hope Judge Alexander doesn't go out there and see it. She's going to be wanting some of that stuff. But just a great facility and just some tremendous work in our community, so we're very thankful to have them and the partnership we have with them. Also, Tiffany and I were able to attend the Red Cross Heroes Breakfast this week, and we got quite a bit of compliments from the Red Cross in a public way. Again, reflective to the relationship with our chief of police and our fire chief and the work that we do as their partner. So I appreciate that. Just wanted to give you an update on one item very quickly. I've been working with Jeff Craig. We've employed with our attorney on the employment side, employment law, that we've asked them to go through and look at our employee manual. And that's something that we probably ought to do every 3 to 5 years, just to make sure we got the right wording, make sure we're current on all the laws and those kind of things. They have reviewed our handbook and they have it back to us. We're going through it right now. Hopefully in the next 30 days we'll have that handbook ready to distribute and make any changes. But I thought it was important for the council to know that we were looking at that and making sure that we were in compliance. So that's being done. I got an email just before we came in here from Jimmy Stent. I know, again, Mike Moss has mentioned this, but the Tennessee Athletic and Maintenance group was in town for the last day and a half, and Jimmy personally said he wanted to brag on Chef Anthony and his staff. And I was down there for lunch today, too, with the Rotary Club, and that was some pretty good chicken. So he does a mean fried chicken. But they just wanted to say, I mean, we had people from East Tennessee, around Maryville. We had Brentwood, Franklin. I've just, some of the shirts that I saw, Murfreesboro. Mike, am I hitting some of the high points there as far as people? Yes. And heard nothing but rave reviews, not only about our facility, but our hospitality, the food, and also the cleanliness of the building. And that was very nice to hear. I know we've, pushed hard to make sure that we're taking care of that building and the asset that we have there. So I just wanted to leave you with that and say thank you to everybody that makes those kind of things happen, and the great event for our community.
Great. Jeff?
Just remember, we'll be presenting the small cell legislation to the Planning Commission this next week. Also, Nathan and I attended the Tennessee Municipal Attorneys Association conference this past week in Brentwood. And it's always a really valuable tool, and I can tell you from being in there that a lot of our departments are miles ahead of a lot of other communities around here. So very, very proud of all the departments that we work with, and including something that you don't see very often, just because there's no reason for me to bring it to you. But a good portion of our work, or my work, and especially Melissa Scott, is bankruptcy. We deal with bankruptcy just about every day, and we're in bankruptcy court. And they had some valuable information dealing with that, but she does do a lot of work, and I'd be lost without her on that end of things. So just I do appreciate her. Also, staying in constant contact with Rock Spring Strategies and monitoring the legislation that's coming down the pike. So far, nothing that's worried about as much, and we're just going to have to see how some of the stuff travels through there on how it will affect us.
Great. Questions for Jeff?
No, just thanks for keeping us up on everything like you do. We get emails sometimes in the wee hours of the morning. I know you're working as late as I am, but I appreciate it, you and your staff.
Raquel?
I'd like to say thank you to all of the town employees who've helped during the flooding issues that we have faced. I know that Brian has already talked about that, and probably everyone else up here will say something, but it's because we really appreciate all that you do, and you really have taken care, you took care of that situation, and I just think you should be commended for it. So thank all of the departments for that. Also, I'd like to ask everyone to keep the Harrell family in their prayers. They are experiencing another medical issue, and I would just like to ask everyone to pray for their family. And then I would like to thank the ML King Leadership Academy of Rutherford County for asking me to participate in their career fair last Sunday. It's a program of high schoolers teaching leadership skills, and they had a career fair at the Patterson Park Community Center last Sunday, and I was able to participate as their quote-unquote politician. So, was glad to be able to participate. On my poster it said public service person. So, but it was a really good experience. A lot of the high schoolers asked a lot of questions, and there were about maybe 15 to 20 participants, and I'd also like to say thank you to Chef Anthony Beverly, who also participated. He was their culinary person for the career fair. And lastly, I was also able to participate with the Middle Tennessee Lawyers Association of Women. They had a panel last week, Women in Politics. And I was able to participate with, actually Judge Alexander was on the panel with Judge Davenport and Amanda Moore, who sits on the Murfreesboro School Board, and the 2 judges. So I'd like to thank them for allowing me the opportunity to participate in that panel discussion as well. And that's all I have.
H.G.
As Brian had mentioned, he missed the SIMA meeting this week, but Mary Esther presented.
Was second choice. That's what they said. H.G. said I was second choice behind you.
I have nothing to say about that. Nothing to say about that. But she did an excellent job presenting the state of the town this week. It was many of the members, I think, were very impressed just to find out this information, and some of them even said that your delivery was very professional.
Oh, good.
And
those kindergarten teaching skills come in handy every so often.
That's exactly right. And we won't meet again before my granddaughter's birthday. She'll be 3 years old a week from today. Her daddy will be, I don't know how old he'll be the day after that, but happy birthday to both of them. And with that, Tim, what do you have?
Well, thank you, H.G.
Do you want to see?
Sure.
You know, I got to attend the seafood buffet that Chef Beverly put on last Friday night. And I mean, what a showcase of talent of himself and his staff. But, you know, even more so, what a great community event, because there were so many folks from the community that you hadn't seen for a while, or you saw the other day, and you got to catch up and you got to have good food. So another gem in our community. To all our first responders, streets department, thank you guys. You know, it's not so much that you don't get the phone calls that really concerns you. It's that we know you guys are out there and you're responding, you're taking care of people. That is first and foremost, and I want to thank everybody involved in that, because I know that was a big undertaking. And finally, the Harold family. Yes, they're in our thoughts and prayers, and I want to emphasize the family. And when anything happens like this, it's first and foremost for our town.
Jerry?
Couple of things, several things. Just like they've mentioned, thanks to all the fire people and the police officers and everybody that helped last weekend. Brian, I know you talked about all they did, but I know you were out there as well, and I want to thank you for doing that too. We appreciate that very much. Last Saturday night, Sister City group had a chili supper and was very well received. Everybody that worked on it, we appreciate it so much. I know some of them are here with us tonight. A lot of money was raised. I'm not going to go into. Hadn't got the final numbers yet, so won't go into that yet. But really was well received. A lot of people came out. The weather wasn't great that night, and people still came out. So we really appreciate it. We had, I think I counted 41 sponsors, I believe is about what it was, and I know several mentioned just a couple that the Jennings and Rebecca Jones Foundation, Franklin Synergy, and Rodowski Eye Care. Everybody stepped up. They really stepped up, so I want to thank them, and as well as all of our sponsors. So thanks for the support in that. And then this Saturday, I'm going to be at a gender reveal for our son and daughter-in-law's first baby. So we'll find out what it's going to be this Saturday.
Great. Steve?
Obviously echo everyone else's concerns. Actually, Jerry kind of stole my thunder. I noticed no one had thanked you, and I was like, I know for a fact you were helping knock on doors, so I appreciate your leadership in that, in your job that you did for the weekend. I know that it was above and beyond probably what any of us have expected, the amount of effort and time that you've been putting in, so we appreciate that. I mean, obviously, police and fire are doing a bang-up job, but I think your leadership for all the employees is also showing, so we appreciate that. I've been out of town for a few weeks. Sorry I missed the last meeting. I was called out of town on a last-minute work assignment. I came home Tuesday, so it was kind of nice to be home this week. I've slept in my bed a couple of nights now this month, which has been nice. So glad to be back. I can tell you that even though when you're not here, we still get the group text and the CAD alerts and all of the notifications still come to my phone. And so there was a couple of times during the weekend that I was getting alerts about flooding situations. And I was in Southern California in the sunshine, and I remembered thinking at the time, it's a good weekend to miss. So I was kind of glad to where I was at and not at home that weekend. But I did get a couple pictures from my house that my yard was a swimming pool in both front and back, and not just the back, which is what it normally is. So there was a lot of rain, and I appreciate the work y'all did. The time change is before we meet again. I always give you all y'all's weather and time updates. So March 10th, time change. So for those of you that like spring, it's coming. The spring equinox is 3 weeks away. So it's fixing to be the busy time of the year.
Mark?
Yeah, I just want to echo the appreciation that we all have for all of you and your folks that did all the work to help with flood management this past few weeks and the water. Brian, to you, I want to say thank you, and to Pat, your wife, for allowing us to keep you as much as we do out there knocking on doors and things like that late at night. So you guys do an awesome job. You always do. So you're hearing it from everybody here. We do appreciate all of you and the people that work with you. So thank you for that. Recently, I get an annual physical every year, you know, and so my doctor had asked me.
Every 6 months.
Well, it's starting to get that way, and I'll tell you why. My doctor had told me, so Mark, you've gained a few pounds here lately, and so he asked me what I could attribute that to, and I said, well, it's the chili supper at the senior spaghetti dinners, the SIMA banquet, the Rotary banquet when we were a guest invited, the seafood festival we had the other night, and so these events are really starting to wear on me a little bit, but just so you know, there's a lot, I say that because there's a lot going on in town, and there's a lot of opportunity for people to engage themselves with these great activities, and you know, I see Fran back there, the seniors, and they always have great food and the desserts, and you know, the visits are always fun. There are treasures, as I like to call them, and with Sister City, same thing. So Jerry, thank you for you and the whole committee for doing such a wonderful job the other night. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. So well wishes to Mike Strange's mother. I did talk to Mike today, and he shared that with me as well. So I told him we'd be thinking about him and praying for his mom. People have mentioned the Harrell family up here, Braxton, Jerry, and Stacy, they just got their hands completely full with medical issues right now. So like Raquel said, and Tim and everybody else up here, we need to pray for that family. They've got a lot going on and a lot happening. So another friend of mine who Steve Smith brought up is Randy Salyer. Steve was mentioning that they're doing a lot of the workload now for the town of Laverne. Randy had some heart issues, so he's going to be out for a while. And so I want to wish Randy well tonight and publicly, and I've been keeping up with him a little bit. And thank Steve and his department for being a good neighbor to Laverne and taking on some of their workload and helping them out the way they are. I think that's the one thing that HG mentioned. You know, it was nice to come to the SIMA meeting the other day and just be a part of watching the mayor put on the State of the Town PowerPoint. And as a reminder, we all know what's going on pretty much every day. We keep our pulse on that. But it's such a fresh reminder to have that PowerPoint and move through it in a way that you see so much that's taking place in the town of Smyrna. Mayor, you did a good job with that, and so I want to say thank you to you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Great. So I have a couple items on my list. First is being involved in our boards and committees. We talked a little bit about this. We will be selecting people for our boards and committees at our next meeting, and says deadline is March the 4th. You can go on townofsmyrna.org website to fill out an application. Our Top Gun night run will be Friday, May 31st at 9 p.m. It will be a 3.17 mile course. It is a 6K because of the plane number, and it will start at the event center and end at the memorial at Lee Victory Recreation Park. If you just want to walk it, that's fine. You don't have to run. I doubt that I'll be doing much running, but Brian was actually going to pull me in a wagon. He was going to run. And then at the end of the course, even if you aren't participating in the race, we're going to have food trucks and live music, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So we recommend that you come out and join us. We are capping the number of runners at 500, and I will tell you they are starting to fill up. So if you're interested, you need to get signed up. Only the people who sign up will get T-shirts and medals, but each person that signs up will get a pretty cool T-shirt and medal. You can register at the Parks office, or that's inside the event center on Sam Ridley Parkway East, or we're also online. You can do it through Facebook or on the town website. We do have sponsorship opportunities. I will tell you our primary sponsor will be the Hollingsheads. I don't know if they're going to do it through the aviation or just Smyrna Rec.
They're going to let us know.
They're going to let us know. So our $7,500 sponsor is already taken. We are working on leadership sponsors, which we have 2 at $3,500 each. $1,500 sponsors, we have 3 of the 5 already taken care of. We already have a couple of the $1,000 sponsors, and we have $500 sponsorships as well as $100 sponsorship, and each one of those levels gets you different items in regards to the race. So if you or your company would like to be a sponsor, we would love to have you. Stream cleanups, we have one scheduled for March 23rd, April 20th, and May 11th. You can contact Greg Upham here at the town if you are interested individually or with a group to help with our stream cleanups. Our summer camp registration opens for members on February the 18th and will open to everyone else on March the 4th. And we encourage you to get your kids signed up for our summer camps. They are really, really good camps. Also wanted to thank Chef for the Seafood Friday night event. You talked about seeing people you know, but you know what else I saw was a lot of people that I'd never seen before, which I think is also great as well. So I got to meet a lot of new folks out
We had over
at the event center. Had over 300?
Over 300 people participate.
Wow.
Reservation-wise.
That's great. Women's Council for Realtors, since we met last, Mayor McFarland, myself, and Laverne participated in a meeting with that group, so got to inform them a lot about what's going on here in the community. Lifetime Service Award took place since we were here last, and I think it was a great night had by all. So congratulations to those individuals. There's a lot of people out there that make sure that our leagues take place, and they do it because they love it. They're volunteers, and so we would not be able to do what we do here in the town without those volunteers. So thanks to them. Brian and I went out west on a trash trip. It was a true trash trip. We were viewing composting sites as well as trash
Recycling,
facilities, recycling facilities, to see what others are doing. We were accompanied by people from the county, Laverne, Eagleville, GNRC. Had someone from GNRC as well. We've got to get a handle on what we're going to be doing in regards to solid waste. And so I think this was a step in the right direction to educating ourselves as to what's out there. So y'all talked about the Sister City Chili Supper. Sima, thank you for allowing me to come out and talk a little bit about what's going on in our community. We're always looking for outreach to let people know what we're doing here in the town, and I think, just like you said, I don't think people realize how much has taken place over a year's time and what we have going here in the community. I want to best wishes to Major Bill Sharp. He will be retiring from the Sheriff's Department. He's been there for quite a while. Tomorrow's his last day there. I think he's got some sick days and things he's going to be using, but I wish him nothing but the best. We've talked a little bit about the Harrell family. For those of you that don't know, Stacy is a fireman with us. A lot of people have probably heard about his son, Braxton, who has been battling his own illness, and his mom had a medical emergency and now is in ICU in Nashville. And so I just can't imagine how much that family has been going through. So please keep Braxton and Savannah and Stacy and Jerry all in your prayers. They need it now more than ever. So directors, Lancaster is going to be doing a lunch from 10 to 1. I forget which Friday that it's going to be on. Please encourage your staff to go. It is free. They just want to share with our town of employees how much they appreciate us. They have worked really, really hard to put this on. And March 8th. So it is not open to the public. It is just for our town employees, but I would hate not to have a good showing with as much effort that they have gone to. So any way you can encourage your staff to go, I would really appreciate it. I tried to send out an email the other day, and hopefully quite a few got that. And there is an RSVP council. It's for us as well. So if you can make it, I would appreciate it. It is a come, eat lunch, and go. And so I know everybody gets lunch hour. So encourage them, please, to try to show up. Last thing I want to talk about is something everybody else has kind of talked about, but it's about team effort. Whether it's what all happened during the flood, whether it's Murfreesboro and Smyrna stepping up for Laverne, whether it's talking about what we're doing for the Harrell family. You know, that's what makes the town such a great place to live. When you see people joining together to help others out, I sure am glad that I live in the town of Smyrna, and I hope everyone else is too. So kudos to everybody for the team effort that you put forth on a daily basis, but especially when there are big problems and issues. So thank you for all that you do to make our community a great place to live. Anything else? Nothing else? Then we're adjourned.